And I wanted to kind of ask, how do you classify your own music? Do you think about it as this is just who I am, and it's classified later by others? Because obviously, like, sometimes your music gets grouped under smooth jazz, and what I found is that, in some cases it's actually, to me, even more instrumental R&B in some cases, or it's just R&B with a guest singer that you have, or it's something else. It's not. I feel like that genre is so limiting and damaging almost to really explaining the uniqueness of each individual artist. We had Dave Koz on, and he said the same thing. He said, people will classify me as one thing, and I just think about it as, this is the music that's true to me. So how do you think about the music you make? And obviously, as someone who's conscious of sales and marketing and so forth, do you think about those elements, about what it classified to the consumer, and how do you feel about it?
Hmm. Well, yeah. Let me just also add that I don't think of my music as popcorn music. First of all, I mean,
Neither do we. Neither do we. It's good, just to be clear. Yeah.
I love the music that I'm making. I love making it. I love listening to it myself. When I'm done. Although after it's done, I never listen to it again for the
Mm.
most part. But yeah, in terms of genre labels and stuff like that, that's smooth jazz is of course a term that I've never used to apply to my music. I always thought that that was the name of a radio format that I was very grateful they were in embracing me, because it helped people know that I existed.
Hmm.
As you mentioned, though, luckily I was also a lot of the music I've made has crossed over into R&B radio, and I have a whole other audience that knows me from listening to those kinds of radio stations. But I've never tried to classify my music as anything other than Boney James music. I hope that it's something unique. I think I do draw on a lot of different influences when I'm writing my songs or producing, and maybe most strongly R&B. But I also make music that might have a Latin tinge, that I am improvising. And so that's jazz. The word jazz is such an amorphous term anyway. Um, but I always thought it just meant freedom to follow your muse, and if you're playing a saxophone and you're improvising, and you're following your muse, maybe that's got jazz in it. But the word smooth jazz, I think, often became sort of a pejorative term amongst a lot of people out there in the world. I know that radio stations never thought of it that way, and the fans, I think, don't think of it that way. But I've always preferred to just try and be my own cat and make music that was unique to me. And I'm grateful for any radio format that's playing it. But when people use it like a cudgel, that is something that I found too bad,
Yeah.
you know. And I
Well,
often hope that people can just listen to the music and not sort of,
come to it with a
contempt prior
preconceived
to
notion or something.
investigation. Contempt prior to investigation, I think, is something that one runs into. But I mean, think about it, man. I mean, even back in the day when Miles went electric, or people like Grover Washington Jr.,
Yeah.
or even so many people that we revere today, or making music that we revere today from the 60s or 70s, when it came out, people were disparaging it because
Hmm.
they thought that it was too contemporary or too beholden to the market or whatever. And this music is like iconic now. And I think that's I find that interesting.
Well, right. It speaks on its own. It speaks for itself. That's kind of what I found so interesting is, and almost I almost want to dispel is this sort of. I feel like we were talking about certain more close-minded perspectives from the hardcore jazz audiences that, oh, smooth jazz artists are, like you're saying, it's a pejorative term. It's something that's like that's less than, or they're trying to portray themselves as something they are not. And I have found with every single artist who so-called has fallen under that radio format, they're the first to be like, look, I prefer to make music that has more of a focus on the melody, and I less of a focus on improvised changes. That's just the personal choice I've made. It's like, for some reason, if you ask us a hardcore jazz fan, they're like, like they're acting as if smooth jazz players are going around pretending they're next John Coltrane. But when I talk with every smooth jazz artist, they're like, they're the first to be like, this is just the choice I make. I like this way, and by no means am I claiming anything. And I've just found with further investigation and conversation that those artists, it's just a fake, vibe. It's a fake perception, you know.
Yeah.
And-
I mean, really, was it Duke, I think, that said there's only two kinds of music, right? It's
yeah,
it's good
yeah,
and bad.
exactly.
Uh, so I think if a lot of cats that are coming more from a straight ahead um, background, tried to make a record that sounded like mine, it might not sound genuine and it might not be good.
Right.
And similarly, if I tried to make a straight ahead record, I mean, that's not just the language that my brain operates in. I don't hear music that way. I would sound false if I was trying to do that. So it's really just finding your voice and then expressing your voice to the best of your ability within, honestly. I think that's the key. I think that's the key backbone of any good music is the honesty and the sincerity behind it. And that's what I really try and focus on. It's just really, tapping into what it is inside of me that I'm trying to say musically, and then just doing that as best as I can. And then this is what my music sounds like.